Now let's use the law of cosines to solve these triangles. Question 3. We are given a non-right triangle. We have a side, an angle, and a side. You always want to check to see if you can do law of sines, and you can see we do not have enough information to do law of sines. Now, if we are solving the triangle, we need to find the measure of angle A, we need to find the measure of angle B, and we need to find side C. Now, since we have an angle, and the law of cosines has an angle in it, we are forced to start right here. So the formula that we will use will be the c squared one. So it is c squared equals the other two sides squared added and subtract 2, those two sides multiplied together, cosine angle C. That's the formula we will use to start this. So now we plug in everything we know. C squared equals A squared is 28 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 28 times 15 cosine 82 degrees. Now, it is very important for you to know that you have to follow order of operations. So if you were doing this on not a great calculator, this is all grouped together. But we have graphing calculators. Your Chromebook should have a graphing calculator on it. So we're just going to type this into the calculator in one big step. So we just start typing in, and then we're going to do cosine 82. Now notice, I type this all in one big thing. I am in degree mode. I hit enter. I'm going to write down c squared equals 892.0946. I'm going to go to the 10,000ths place to avoid round off error. Then I'm going to square root both sides, but I'm going to let that calculator do the work for me. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to hit enter, and that is going to give me the side of 29.9. So that is officially C. Okay. Now we have good news. We have 29.9. Now we have 82 and the opposite side. So we basically throw away law of cosines. It has got us back to law of sines. Okay? So what we're going to do here, we are going to go to this 15 right here, and I am now going to calculate B. Okay? So B is going to be sine 82 over that 29.9, that's going to equal sine angle B over 15. Just like we learned in the previous lesson, we are just going to cross multiply this. Okay. So now that we have everything cross-multiplied, we need to get sine B by itself. So we're going to divide by the 29.9. Okay. And if we have a really good calculator, this is rounded. So we would just go ahead and do this part on the calculator. So 15 sine 82 divided by 29.9. And that is going to give me that number. I will round that to 10,000ths place, and that is going to equal sine B. Now remember, we are finding an angle. So we are going to take the inverse sine on both sides. That'll get rid of that. So we're going to say inverse sine, and then we're going to get angle B. So B is approximately 29.8 degrees. So since that is B, we have rounded that, so that's 29.8 degrees. We now can just use the 180 degrees in a triangle to find A. So 180 degrees, subtract 82, subtract 29.8, and we're going to get 68.2 degrees. So, law of cosines will get us unstuck. As soon as we get that matching pair, then we can go back to the law of sines because it's a little bit quicker. Okay, now that was an example of side, angle, side. Now, question 4. We are only given 3 sides, okay? So this is a side, side, side. We cannot use law of sines because we simply do not have an angle. Now, typically, the rule of thumb here is that we do the largest angle first. If we can get that largest angle first, it'll kind of just make everything else right. So, we need to do the measure of angle A, the measure of angle B, and the measure of angle C. Now, the question is, which one is the biggest? Well, if you know your triangle rules, if 6 is the biggest side, then B is going to be the biggest angle. So we are actually going to focus on angle B first. So if we're going to do that, then the formula that we would use for law of cosines would start with B squared. Now remember, it's going to be the other 2 sides squared, subtract those 2 sides, multiplied together, and then it's going to be cosine angle B. Now, let's plug in what we know. 6 squared equals 4 squared plus 5 squared minus 2 times 4 times 5 cosine B. We are now looking for B. Now, this is where order of operations is extremely important, and the calculator is going to do this work for us. Now, I need you to know that this is attached to cosine B. So the first thing we're going to do, we are going to subtract 4 squared, and we are going to subtract 5 squared, and that is going to equal 2 times 4 times 5 cosine B. Okay? So this right here on the calculator, you're just going to let the calculator do this work for you. You don't have to write down so many pieces. This is -5 equals. This right here is 8 times 5, so it's going to be -40 cosine B. Now, to get cosine B by itself, we divide by -40. And you can see when we divide by -40, it's going to give us that. So this is going to be a positive 0.125 equals cosine B. Now, to get that angle, we're going to do the inverse of cosine. It'll take care of that. So inverse cosine of the 0.125 is going to give us approximately 82.8 degrees for the measure of angle B. So if I go up here and I put the measure is 82.8 degrees. Now we have one angle, so the next thing we're going to do now, we are going to see if we can get away from law of cosines, and we can because we now have a matching partner. So we are going to use law of sines now. Sine 82.8 over its opposite side is 6 is going to be equal to, now we have a choice, it does not matter which one we do. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to pick A. Okay. So opposite of A is 4, okay, so here's A. So we're going to say sine angle A corresponds to 4. And we're going to cross multiply. And since I'm running out of room here, I'm just going to cross multiply 4 up here and 6 up here. So those will disappear. To get sine A by itself, I'm going to divide by 6. And I'm going to divide by 6. So now these go away, okay? So I've got 4 sine 82.8 divided by 6, and that's going to give me 0.6614 equals sine A. Now I am going to simply do the inverse here on both sides. So sine, the inverse of sine, of that 0.6614, or let me just grab that so I don't round that at all. So that's going to give me the measure of angle A to be approximately 41.4 degrees. So let's go ahead and write that up here at 41.4 degrees. Now we can simply use the 180 degrees, subtract these two out to find C, which is 55.8 degrees. So again, I know it looks intimidating, but if you will just trust the process and trust the patterns and know your order of operations, everything will just kind of fall into place. Now remember, the purpose of law of cosines is when law of sines lets us down. Now, we are actually finished with this chapter, so now we just kind of need to talk about selecting a strategy when we're dealing with triangles. So the first thing I want you to really keep in mind is that the fact of, if you have a right triangle, then you have options. Okay, so you can use your trig ratios. Okay, so that's going to be our SO, CA, TOA. Okay, you can also use your Pythagorean theorem, your geometric mean, your special right triangles, similar right triangles. We've done a lot of things with right triangles. Now, if you are given other triangles, so this is non-right, then your options must be, first, look to use law of sines. Second, you're going to look for law of cosines. Okay, so that leads us to this last question. Okay, it says two radar stations are 2.4 miles apart in tracking an airplane. So here's A, here's B, they're tracking this airplane. It says the straight line distance between station A and the plane is 7.4 miles. The straight line distance between station B and the plane is 6.9 miles. What is the angle of elevation from station A to the plane? Now, what you are looking for is right here. So the strategy you have to first kind of look at, it says nothing about a right triangle. So therefore, we cannot use our trigonomic ratios. So now we look to use law of sines. We cannot use law of sines because we do not have a match. We do not have an angle. We are actually given side, side, side. Okay, so that means our strategy must be the law of cosines. Now, we are looking for angle A, so this is the formula that you should use. So A squared equals B squared plus C squared, subtract 2BC cosine A. Now, I would like for you to pause the video and try to stick all of the numbers in there and round this angle to the nearest degree. Now, the first thing that I hope that you have done is that you have plugged in all of the numbers where they're supposed to be. Then, at this point, you can turn it over to the calculator. So I'm going to show you my calculator and the steps that I have done. The first thing I did was I brought this and this over from the 6.9 squared, and I got a negative 12.91. Then I multiplied these three numbers together, and I got negative 35.52 cosine A. Order of operations must be applied here. I then divided this over here. You can see my work here. And I got a 0.3635 equals cosine A. Then I did the inverse cosine, and I got 68.68. So if I round that to the nearest whole, as the directions are asking me to do, to the nearest degree, I'm going to get that the measure of angle A is 69 degrees.